I really, really wanted to like this episode. I really did. It had so much promise. And I did. Alright, I'm changing things up a little bit right now, just kind of experimenting, letting you all know my thoughts of this episode at the beginning. And that is, I really liked this episode. I really did. I know it might seem a little bit weird for me to do that, but I'll still talk about my overall thoughts. But as for the episode in and of itself, I liked it. So let's figure out what brought me to the idea that I liked this episode, which is episode 94 of Discovering Doctor Who, and on Mummy on the Orient Express. Already a bit disorganized. But let's talk about my favorite parts of the episode, starting with the countdown. And I mean, this appears as soon as the episode starts, the first countdown from 66 seconds, and it's like, I don't know, in the right movie or the right show, it would probably seem creepy or scary, but it still added this element of tension to the episode that was really good, especially in that first scene where, you know, we kind of assume that the countdown is how long the woman has to live, or how long until the mummy reaches her. But all the same, is like, you know, we don't know exactly what's going to happen, or even one thing that the Doctor comments on but doesn't really explore is whether or not touching the mummy before the time is up would still kill him. So I don't know, part of me kind of wishes they would have touched on that a little bit, like, what if you get too close to the mummy? What if the mummy touches you before the 66 seconds elapse? I don't know. I mean, it may not have done anything, to be to be completely honest. But yeah, it just I really liked the countdown. It added a nice bit of tension to the episode that I really appreciated. Now, my second favorite part of this episode, getting right down to it, it's the Doctor. The Doctor was amazing in this episode, and I really like Capaldi is doing an amazing job as the Doctor in this series. He has done a great job, but there was just something about this episode that just really, I don't know. Although I felt like, you know, he has felt like the Doctor to me. He has felt like, you know, Peter Capaldi is the Doctor in this series. Something about this episode just kind of like flipped another switch, or flipped a few more switches that just kind of, you know, pulled me in even more with him, you know, as the Doctor. He just did a great job in this one, and the writing for the Doctor, both the Doctor and Clara in this episode, was quite good, especially for the Doctor. But yeah, and one thing that I really did like, and actually I'm mentioning this just because I don't mention the other characters in my favorites, when it comes to, like, the Captain in particular. The Captain, before he dies, comments about how the Doctor woke him up. The Doctor brought out, you know, the best in him. And, you know, people have said, well, I don't know, it feels like recently, especially with Danny, you know, he's commented on they bring out, you know, the best in you more than you believe there could be. But it's always, like, especially from Danny, it's been in sort of a negative context, whereas this is a way in which the Doctor has brought out the better elements of someone in a good way. It's like, you know, brought out, you know, the true, that I'm kind of rambling right now, but just the Doctor felt even more like the Doctor to me, if that makes any sense whatsoever. So yeah. Alright, now my third favorite part of this episode was Perkins. Apparently played by a man known as Frank Skinner, who is, I guess, a stand-up comedian in the UK. I don't know Frank Skinner. I don't know that I've seen him in any other shows or anything like that. But I really liked the character overall. Like, in the very beginning, I honestly thought he might have been someone that was in on whatever was going on with the mummy. I thought he might be sort of a, I don't know, someone working for the bad guy, or working for Gus or whatever. But, I don't know, I really like the character. Very smart, very funny. Like, again, I don't know Frank Skinner's comedy, but they wrote the character in a way that was really natural. It really worked, and he was funny. He just had some very good, very funny lines, and I really did like that. So yeah, Perkins, my third favorite part of this episode. Now my fourth favorite was the mummy itself, and the design. I mean, it was, well, except for like when it would phase out and in, which requires computer graphics. I mean, the design itself was completely, I can't think of the right word, but basically, non-CGI. It was all, designed by hand, and it looked really good. It was probably the most convincing mummy costume I think I've ever seen that wasn't a CGI character, like in a movie or something like that. In this case, it really, really worked, and it added such an amazing creep factor to it, because, the tension of the countdown was there. But then it's like, I imagine if I had watched this episode for the first time in a dark room, I would have been really creeped out by that mummy, legitimately. So, yeah, just the mummy and the whole mythology around it. I just really found all of that really intriguing. I really, really did. So yeah. Now, moving on, my fifth favorite part of this episode was Gus. And Gus doesn't play a huge role in this episode, but when whatever it is, I don't know if we were hearing a person actually talking, or if that was an artificial intelligence that was talking, or what, but yeah, I really found Gus interesting. And I'll kind of comment on that a little bit more in my theory, but I'll just leave it at that. Gus was definitely one of my favorite aspects of this episode. Not necessarily the biggest reason, but he was funny too. I mean, there were some lines that the way that they were delivered in this episode just cracked me up. As bad as it sounds, when he decompressed the kitchen area and sent the people out, like the person or the artificial intelligence's tone of voice sounded annoyed and very dismissed during this moment that people were dying. And I don't know, maybe that's kind of sadistic of me, but I just found that to be really, really funny, the way it was said. It's like, vacate the area, decompressing. It was delivered so well. I love that moment. Again, other than the fact that, people died, which is unfortunate and kind of makes me sound like a horrible person, but I've come to accept that. Anyway, my sixth and final favorite part of this episode, and this one might be a bit controversial based on comments, but Clara and the Doctor, more specifically, their relationship. Just getting to see it continue, because I know some people are sick of Clara, and by the end of this series and the Christmas episode, I may be too. I don't know. But as it stands right now, I really like Clara, and I wasn't ready for her to go. I was worried at first that she wasn't going to be in this episode, because I caught just the smallest bit of one of the previews before, or after Kill the Moon was over, and it didn't show Clara, so I was thinking, okay, so, this is an adventure that the Doctor goes on his own. But, yeah, I am personally really happy to see Clara still along for the ride, for now, and, to be completely honest, one of the reasons is, Clara's personality, it reminds me of my wife in some ways. It's, my wife is a very strong woman who will say what is on her mind and won't take your bullshit. And, Clara, it depends on who's writing her, unfortunately. But, that's very much a feeling, very much the personality that I get from Clara. So, yeah, in that regard, I really do. That's one of the things that I like about her. Again, I know that people don't like her. I know some people are sick of her. Who knows, I may be the same at the end of the series. But for now, I really do like it, and I'm happy to see us get a little bit more of that happiness back in the relationship between Clara and the Doctor. There was that smile of joy on the Doctor's face, when he said about how, that was a big change of heart. And, I mean, unfortunately, she did lie. Well, she lied to both the Doctor and to Danny. But at the same time, I don't know, a selfish part of me is happy to see her still along for the ride. So yeah, I'm sure more of that'll come, and I'll delve into it more as episodes come up. But for now, yes, my final favorite part of this episode was Clara and the Doctor. If you have something to say about it, fight me! Or don't. Whatever you want. Alright, now it is time for my annoyances, or annoyance, of the episode. And it was one that bothered me more on reflection of the episode, because honestly, there wasn't really much that annoyed me about the episode overall. But the one thing that did kind of get to me was that, okay, they're on this train, and we find out that the train is filled with all these experts in mythology and biology and physics and this and that, and the Doctor. And other than Perkins, the captain, and then the Doctor, whose name I don't remember, we don't really get any idea of who these other people are. Yeah, we get it that they're experts in their fields, but how does the Doctor know that? Like, maybe he just kind of picks it up in conversation or something? I don't know, but, like, how does the Doctor know that, you know, the train is filled with experts? How does... well, other than just, like, you know, him figuring it out, we don't get any real characterization of those people. It's like, I don't think anyone except for the ones I mentioned really have any lines in the episode, unless you count sort of like, you know, horrified gasps when they see, you know, people outside that are dead. But yeah, we don't get any characterization, which we don't need a lot. I mean, you know, had the episode been longer, they might have done that to sort of fill the gap or fill the time, but as it is, it would have been nice to at least get an idea of who these people are, to at least get their names, or again, maybe have a quick scene where the Doctor, you know, sees, or how he finds out that all of these people are scientists and experts. I don't know, that really bothered me, that they didn't include just a very short, very quick scene to help out with that. Give those side characters, or those experts, some characterization, or at least give us an idea of who they are. So yeah, alright, so that's really the only big annoyance I had with the episode. But I do have one, well, that happened, and it kind of bounces back to Clara and the Doctor, which is, again, still one of my favorite parts of the episode, but my well, that happened is the addiction. The addiction that Clara has when it comes to traveling with the Doctor, wanting to continue traveling with the Doctor. And the reason why, like, I kind of consider making it an annoyance, because, I mean, this addiction isn't anything new. It's something that we've seen with really all of the companions to some degree. You know, some not more blatant than others, like Rose, who was clearly addicted and in love, but very much addicted to the Doctor. But yeah, again, it's not anything new, but at the same time, it's apparently just very much a driving force at the end of the episode here. Like, it really bothered me that, I don't know, it's just kind of creating the writers are sort of forcing this conflict in there, where it's like she's lying to Danny, she's lying to the Doctor. It's going to come out at some point, but will it come out first to the Doctor, who will just be like, oh, so you lied to me and to Danny, big deal. or will Danny be the one to figure it out, and there'll be this big emotional, you know, overly serious moment, and as it goes on, Danny's starting to bother me more and more. But yeah. So there you go. My very neutral kind of annoyance, but not really, would be the addiction that Clara seems to have. And again, the annoyance part of that falls more on that it's not a new thing, but the way they are portraying it, it almost seems like they kind of intend it to be, or they're trying to portray it as if it's something new to the show. I don't know. But, alright, moving on from there. Well, first, as always, if you have any of your own favorite parts of the episode, your own annoyances other than Clara, and, you know, any of your own, well, that happened moments of the episode, please do let me know in the comments down below. And, yes, I know this is singling out at least one person, and I hate doing that, but it's true. It's like, you know, if anyone is going to say that Clara was the part that they hated or disliked about the episode, you need to say something positive about the episode, because, or you need to say something positive about her as well, because in my opinion, Clara did a really good job in this episode. You know, you can, the debate can be made regarding, you know, her lying to the Doctor and to Danny, whatever, but the character herself, the way she was written and the way she was portrayed, I thought it went rather well. And let's face it, Jenna Coleman was beautiful in this episode. I'm such a dork. But anyway, I've been staying on that way too long. It's time for my track of the episode, and I have a feeling that none of you will really be surprised by this, but my track of the episode, after looking at the soundtrack, the one song that has stood out in my mind since the first time I watched the episode, because I've watched it twice so far, is Don't Stop Me Now. The Queen cover, apparently performed by an artist named Foxes, I think the name is. I'm not entirely sure, but just, that was such a good cover. It was really well done, just this very jazzy 20s style cover of the song, and it was so well done. I really, really like that. So, yeah, I like, you know, no, it didn't matter if there were like 20 other tracks on the episode or not. That's the one that stood out the most to me by far, and it was definitely the best. I was warned, you know, of apparently potential spoilers in the official music video, so I didn't watch the official music video, you know, to try and avoid that, but the song is just so good. I mean, I love the original Queen version, and this one, just like, you know, it's a very nice little remix slash cover of the song. I really, really liked it. So yeah, there you go. If you had any other favorite tracks of the episode, you know, some of the more traditional tracks for an episode of Doctor Who, please do let me know in the comments down below. Now, as for my quote of the episode, there were some pretty good quotes in this episode, but there was one, just like the Don't Stop Me Now line, that stood out the most to me, and very much like my comments on you know, when Gus decompresses the air in the kitchen, and, you know, his sort of sarcastic or nonchalant remarks, like, you know, his tone of voice made me laugh. This quote itself just cracked me up. Like, I had to pause the episode while watching, and just reading it, I don't know why it made me crack up so much, but it just works so well in that particular scene. And the quote is this, and it's from Gus. "We apologize for any distress you may have just experienced. Grief counseling is available on request." It just, that line is just so good, and for that moment in time, so absolutely perfect. And it plays on with that, you know, this personality. Again, I don't know whether it's an artificial intelligence or a person behind Gus, but it's just such a well-delivered line, and again, although there are many, you know, very worthy lines from this episode that could be the quote of the episode, that one just stood out the absolute most to me, much like Don't Stop Me Now did as far as the track of the episode goes. So yeah, if you have any of your own quotes of the episode, and I'm sure there are plenty more you can choose from, please do let me know in the comments down below. Now, moving on from there, I actually do have a theory for this episode, and it's, it kind of deals with Missy, but it's not so much as to an idea of who she might be, but rather, my theory is that Gus is a subordinate of Missy. I mean, that's completely unfounded. I don't have any real, explanation as to why that might be, but it just, I don't know, it bothers me that, you know, Gus might just be this disembodied entity that was trying to, you know, find out, or trying to capture the mummy. It feels like there's way more to the story than that, and just based on how the arc of this episode, or of this series, has been going, I feel like Missy has to have her hands in it in some way. Could be completely wrong, could be way off base, but that is my theory, that Gus is a subordinate of Missy in some form, whether Gus is actually a person controlling the Gus interface, or Gus is simply an artificial intelligence. So yeah, you know, don't spoil anything, but I don't know, if you can give any information about that without spoiling things, you know, do let me know. Like, if I'm just completely wrong that, you know, Gus is totally unaffiliated with Missy in any shape or form, you know, let me know that. But otherwise, I don't know, I'm really looking forward to finding out who Missy is and what heaven / paradise / the nether sphere is, whatever that might be. So yeah, now you already know my thoughts on the episode. I really, really liked it. But as for my overall thoughts, to repeat myself, really, really enjoyed this episode. Like, so far, I definitely have to say that this is, so far, my favorite episode of the series so far. It is just really well done. It brought to a close that, you know, the phone call that the Doctor got back at the end of, was it the Big Bang? Yeah, the Big Bang. And, you know, brought that full circle because he referenced, you know, getting a call before and, you know, trying to be taken to the train, you know, the mummy that he got in the phone call, obviously back with the 11th Doctor. And, there were just so many great aspects of this episode, and I don't know if saying this will bother some of you or not, especially, you know, because a lot of people say that they hate Moffat's era. They hate Moffat since his era since he took over head writer of the show. But it really did. This episode felt like it was one of those that would have fit very, very well back in the era when Russell T Davies was head writer of the show. Like, it feels like it would have been one of those, maybe not necessarily a Moffat episode, because he's not the one that wrote this. I should have written down the actual writer, but the writer of the episode just did a really good job, and again, it's like, Russell T Davies, in my personal opinion, his era was the best of what I've experienced of the Doctor Who so far, in an overall sense, not an episode by episode. So I definitely feel like this episode would have fit in really well back then, in that era, and it just, yeah, it was just a really, really good episode. If you hated this one for some reason, let me know why, because I'm really curious to find out why you might not like this episode, because I know in the past there have been some that I've said, you know, are my favorites of a season, and some of you all have, you know, voiced reasons why you hate it, and, you know, your reasons are your own, and your reasons are completely legitimate, whatever they may be. I'm just really curious. So yeah, let me know if you feel very much differently, or not. Agree with me if you like. I like that too. Alright, now, to put it correctly this time, since I said Flatline was the last episode, I will see you all next time for Flatline, and I am definitely looking forward to it, and I'm actually going to be watching it after I finish recording here. So, until next time everyone, I'm PapaKenn. Alonzi!